Okay, there we go. There we go.
Good evening. Welcome to the March 14th, 2024 Police Commission meeting. I'm Interim Chair Hawkins, and we will start this evening with a quick review of the agenda. One swap that we will be making. The independent police auditor's role in ongoing work, we're going to move after the Law Enforcement Mental Health and Wellness Subcommittee update. Pending no objections to that, we'll proceed with the agenda as planned this evening. Holly, will you let me know when Commissioner Booker joins, please?
Yes.
A reminder for the folks in the room, good evening, is that we have received some feedback that for folks on the Zoom, it's difficult to hear people who are speaking in the room since we have, I think, one microphone for all of us. So when we're in the room, if we could please speak up and project our voices for the benefit of those attending virtually, that would be appreciated. We are starting this evening with a tribute to our late chair, Dallas Boggs. We are joined this evening by some former commissioners, as well as the current roster of the Eugene Police Commission. We're going to go in alphabetical order this evening. We're going to start with the commissioners, and it's going to go in order of last name. Do we have Booker yet?
Not yet.
Since there are quite a few of us that have something to say about Chair Boggs, let's try to keep each person's time to under 2 minutes. If you don't wish to speak, or if you're not present, your time will be yielded to the person after you. Dr. Booker is scheduled to go first. However, he's not present at this time. So do we have former Commissioner Dominguez?
No, not at this time.
All right. We do have former Commissioner V. Wynn on board. And so V, we would love to begin with you and your words for the family and partner of Chair Boggs.
Thank you, Chair, for this opportunity for me to come and pay tribute to honor Dallas, who is both a friend and a colleague that I really respected. Dallas's death, is a tragedy and a great loss to the city of Eugene and to his friends and families and colleagues. Dallas, as many of you know, was a true and natural born leader, who had the ability to diffuse any tense situations. He shared with us his anecdotes, his stories of his life that worked in the situations to kind of help us understand what he's trying to convey. He was charismatic, and to put it lightly, he was a disco ball of any gathering. Dallas is, if you're listening, man, I miss you, and I hope you're in a better place now. But here's a little quote from a Zen master who also passed away recently. His name was Thich Nhat Hanh, and this is what he said about death. He said, "Birth and death are only a door through which we go in and out of. So smile to me and wave goodbye. Tomorrow we shall tomorrow we shall meet again." So Dallas, I hope that we will meet again. Until then, I miss you. Thank you.
Thank you, V. Alan Lyman, you're next.
Well, thank you. Just the news was such a blow personally, and right away my sense of loss for the community was profound, and my sadness and sense of loss. He did a wonderful job of herding us. Cats, we're cats, and he did a great job of it with grace and respect. And as V just said, just could handle it with that, handle tension and diffuse it. It just reminds us how fragile it all is, and he will be missed. So, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Lemons.
Thank you. Quite honestly, I'm still reeling from this news. Did not come with a prepared statement. Normally, I choose not to in these situations as well. He was such a force of nature. I always looked up to him. His mentorship and his friendship still and will always mean the world to me. I remember when I became chair of the Human Rights Commission, I had such imposter syndrome, and he took me away to the side and he told me how to maneuver the city and all of this. And I lost a friend, the community lost one of the biggest and most caring hearts that they could. And me and him might have usually disagreed on these publicly recorded meetings, but my gosh, would we have a good time afterwards, sitting around and talking about it after. I really loved how and learned so much from him about how to deal with so many passionate people. I mean, the police commission has got to be one of the most passionate commissions that the city of Eugene has. And he was still able to make sure that we are achieving our work plan. But more importantly, he's just a beautiful soul, and he always will be. And he is around me right now. So Dallas, just know I love you. I'm gonna make you proud, and as will this commission. I guess that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lemons. For the benefit of those attending, we are joined by family and the partner of Dallas Boggs via Zoom. Commissioner Mogart, you're next.
Yeah, thank you. It was some years ago when I met Dallas. We were at the police department, and there was a part of a community conversation engagement with a select group of people. And we were interviewing a new possible, I believe it was captain. And that's when we met Sherry Meisel. And at that point, am I correct in her position, Captain Meisel?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Okay. At that point, me and Dallas had, kind of found a kinship with, the local politics and other things. And I was surprised and grateful to see his name come up as a possible police commissioner to come into this position. And so he was one of my picks when we interviewed him and brought him on. And Dallas and I had a lot of conversations outside of the police commission. I knew where he actually lived just a stone's throw away from my office when I was with the city club. So we met a few times actually and just talked on the street, sometimes for quite lengthy conversations just about different things. So I do appreciate that. And I really think that we lost somebody big from the community. I really appreciated Dallas for who he was and what he did and what he knew.
Thank you, Commissioner Mogart. Commissioner Parham.
Thank you, Chair. I didn't know Chair Boggs the best. I actually looked forward to being able to learn more about him and spend more time with him, which kind of just leads me to the next thing is tomorrow is never promised. And so the relationships that you have today, honor and cherish those. And Chair Boggs leaves behind an amazing legacy in this town and is a source of pride for me as a fellow Black man in this area in the city to see him succeed and be such a pillar of community and be such a stakeholder in this city. It's really something that inspires me, and I aspire to honor his legacy by being the best that I can be in this town while I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Parham. Commissioner Shivers.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Thanks. Dallas leaves behind a terribly vast void not just in our community, but in the lives of everybody who's known him. I don't think there's anything any of us can say that is can possibly live up to that and to the space that he has occupied in all of our lives. So I think all we can do is thank him for his years of service, and I wish the best for his family. Thank you.
Thank you. Holly, do we have former Commissioner Winbrook?
Does not look like we do.
Okay, we'll move to Councillor Ye.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I feel really fortunate that I was able to get to know Dallas. I did not know him well before he started serving on the police commission. And what I will remember about him is his immense kindness and the fact that he always wanted people to feel welcome. And when he took over for chair, that's one of the things I think that he really brought to that position, with this idea that when you walked into this room, you were welcome, whoever it was, a community member, or someone with EPD, or a commissioner. And I will miss him very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Zelenka.
Yeah, plus passing is a pretty big loss for our community. I knew Dallas through the police commission and his job as chair, which he did a great job as. I didn't know him very long, only a couple of years, but I felt like I knew him a long time. It's kind of one of those guys that you just feel like you've known a long time. He was so outgoing and gregarious, and but he was also down to business and results oriented, and that showed in how he ran the meetings. But in doing that, he also had this unique skill that is very uncommon, which is that he listened and he made sure everybody was heard in the room. And that's really hard to do and feel heard. And I really admired that in him. It's an amazing skill and trait that I think you don't really learn it. You just have that, and he had it. He often spoke from his heart and his perspective as a Black man. And that was always valuable to me. But above all, he was just a really, really nice guy. And Jada and family know that Eugene's a better place because he was here.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Booker?
Yes. Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you. Apologize about being late. My father's in the hospital at the moment. He had to have a surgery. So I haven't really had an opportunity to really mourn Dallas the way I really wanted to mourn him. And I know it'll probably catch up with me later because I'm trying to keep my dad alive. But one thing I can say, Dallas is the one that introduced me to coming to the police commission. We started a lot of different projects in Eugene together. Some of them didn't come to fruition, others did. One thing I can say about him is his ability to motivate, inspire, and connect people was unparalleled. He was a man of culture, a man of the community. He was a man of Eugene and of the state of Oregon, and he loved all of them dearly. Spoke about each one at length, and he was a remarkable dad and husband. But he was more than that. He was my brother, my close friend, and in positions here, he was leadership to me. And there's no way to replace him. And I'll forever miss him. A lot more I'm gonna say probably at his funeral. But right now, just there's no words to describe what he meant to me and to the town. And hopefully he's honored by the town as big or as immensely as he was. So hopefully we can make that happen. But thank you for letting me speak about my dear friend and brother and fellow police commissioner, Dallas. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Booker. Former Commissioner Dominguez.
Hello?
We can hear you.
Oh, okay, hi. Sorry, I don't know why my video is not working. I have never said anything about a dead person. I am sorry if my words are not well selected. I regret that I didn't get to know him more. That is what I can say. I cried a lot after I learned about it. It hurt a lot. Because I realized that he like made the police commission like when we went in, I mean, we were all new, but he made every one of us call each other commissioner so and so, commissioner so and so, and that just, I feel like that raised the bar. That made us more professional. I feel like he changed the way that the organization felt. The way that he would go in and he like wanted a room, and he wanted, I think if I'm not mistaken, didn't he put like little flags back there or something? There aren't flags right there right now, but I just thought it was so cute. But then the more that I thought about it, like the more that he was giving us more a sense of like who we were. Like at first I just felt like a volunteer, but then afterwards, like, and I know that I felt it in myself that like I wanted to do more, but the more that he made it more professional and he like dressed up and he just made everything like more real. I don't know if that makes any sense, because we don't, we're volunteers, but he made it feel like we were really something. And I don't know, that just to me made it feel like there was more that we can do. And then the more that I saw that we were doing more, and it just kind of it just made us stronger, I feel like. And I think without Dallas, things wouldn't be as strong as they are. And I just hope that we can continue that. As for everybody that got to know him more, I am quite envious that I didn't get to know him more. I guess what I would say is you guys are all still there, and I hope that you would all get to know each other even more if you haven't already, because it's beautiful. Because there aren't a lot of people that give up their time to do this. It's like you're all a very select few of people that do this, so it's just there aren't a lot of people in the community that do that. It's hard to find that. So anyway, that's it. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Bonnie. Holly, do we have Ian Winbrook?
Let me check. Oops. Sorry, my mouse isn't working. No.
Okay. All right. We'll move to EPD then. Chief Skinner.
Thank you, Interim Chair Hawkins. Dallas and I would bond every October with breast cancer awareness. I mean, it was just like choice. Like I had a choice. It was like clockwork. The first thing he'd ask me is, what are the motors going to look like this year? What are your cars? How pink are your cars going to be? And so we had some fun around that. I mean, we shared that together. Both of our lives have been touched by breast cancer, and so people in our families that have been touched by that. And so I will certainly miss and will look upon every October a little bit differently in the future, and know that we're not only doing this in honor of Breast Cancer Awareness Month and our breast cancer survivors, but also Dallas Boggs. And so we'll take great pride in doing that. The other thing I would say is through this tragedy, I've had an opportunity to talk to some family members and better understand and learn really the heart, where Dallas's heart was. We always knew his heart was with Eugene. We knew his heart was with his Oregon Ducks. I guess what I didn't understand at the time was just how much his heart was with this police department, and how proud of this police department he was. And it's with that I'm so honored and proud that both Honor Guard and the motor team will be a part of the memorial service on the 29th. And so we're so happy to be working with the family and trying to support them during this difficult time. And so just a lot of pride and a lot of privilege and a lot of honor felt by this police chief to have known Dallas Boggs. Also want to read a statement sent to us by Navasha Tester. She couldn't be here. For those of you that don't know, Navasha is a police officer here in the City of Eugene Police Department. She's actually a youth services officer out at Willamette High School. And so she's usually a part of these meetings, but is not here tonight. She says Chair Boggs was a mentor to any person he came into contact with. He deeply cared for the community and the needs of every citizen. He implemented programs, coordinated events, and created social platform on social media to connect Black African Americans in the Eugene Springfield area. His creation of the social network made me feel included in the greater network of Eugene and Springfield. It allowed access to resources and others to assist navigating various issues or promote business. It allowed for growth of each member. His leadership will be greatly missed in this community, and I hope we each carry on with his legacy of service to our community. With great love, Navasha Tester. And the last thing I would say is, I think it's incumbent on all of us. The true measure of loss is when the name is never spoken again. And so that's on us to make sure that we don't let that happen.
Thank you, Chief. Holly?
Yeah, I just am gonna say that I'm gonna miss Dallas so much, and it's weird not having him here this evening. He and I, before our meetings, we'd always meet an hour ahead of time and go over the agenda, and we'd always talk about personal things. He's a single dad, I'm a single mom, and so we had that in common, but he spoke a lot about Jada, and he was so looking forward to the cross-country trip that you guys were gonna take in May, I believe, and he was so proud of your education and your aspirations. And I just know that he loved you very much, and we're going to miss him. I'm going to miss him. And he was a pillar of our community. And I'm going to miss Dallas. Thank you.
Thank you, Holly. As Dallas's number 2, I have to say the first time I met him, I thought he was one of the biggest blowhards I'd ever met. He was name dropping. He was so impressed with all the people he knew and all the work that he was doing. And I thought he was so egotistical. My husband and I had met him at Brenner's Furniture. And over the 2 or so years that I knew Dallas, it became so evident that that man was not egotistical. He actually really cared about every single name that he inserted into a conversation. And if he knew somebody important, he would make sure you knew them too, and that they knew you. And he was the only name dropper that I've ever met that always made sure that the introduction followed that. He talked a lot about his service to the community. And then I got to watch it in action. My husband also was an ambassador for Men Wear Pink. And so we interacted with Dallas there. Because of Dallas, a lot of doors were opened in this community. My husband's now the president of the Lane NAACP. That is directly due to a lot of introductions that Dallas made. Me being vice chair here has been directly related to Dallas deciding that he wanted me to be his vice chair and putting me in a position where I could become elected to be vice chair. So the benefit of going last with a tribute like this is getting to see and agree with all of the things that everybody had said, particularly former Commissioner Dominguez, as far as making those relationships and taking that time to get to know more of these people that we work with, we make decisions with, that we get together with to make recommendations to City Council. And it was a privilege to know Dallas, and it was a privilege to call him my close friend and mentor. And we will, unless we have former Commissioner Winbrook, we will wrap up our tribute. Dallas was so incredibly proud of all of his family, the brother, the sisters, the daughter. It used to irritate me sometimes because he would not shut up about all of the accomplishments of every single person in his family. But he was so incredibly proud, and we all should have a person like Dallas Boggs in our corner to brag about us the way that he bragged on all of you. Thank you very much for joining us this evening, and thank you for letting us spend this time paying our homage to your family member. I have to say, I have no idea how to pivot from that into business for this evening. That's a tough act to follow. So,
Is there anything in the family like this?
actually, that's actually an excellent question. If any of the family members who are attending or Dallas's partner, Sandy, would like to speak to the commission, we would be more than happy to promote you to panelist and let you speak on the Zoom this evening. Pending that, we will go ahead and recap our previous meeting from, oh, we do? Thank you. Thank you so much. Lynette, Lynette, you're one of the sisters that we used to hear about all the time.
There we go.
There you are.
Here I am. I just wanted to just take a short opportunity to thank all of you for, you know, the work that you did with my brother Dallas and making, I mean, he was so passionate about the Eugene Police Commission. You know, as someone who is a, you know, I serve as a chief deputy, you know, city attorney in Little Rock. And so we often talked about, you know, local government and, you know, comparing notes as to what Eugene was doing and, you know, what Little Rock was doing. And I can tell you that even just a few short days before he passed away, that, you know, I had reached out to Holly and my brother and said, hey, we're starting a public safety commission in Little Rock. Can you send me the bylaws of the Eugene Police Commission? And Holly and my brother, you know, sent those bylaws, and I can tell you that they've been integrated into the bylaws of the city of Little Rock, which will start a similar commission and will have its inaugural meeting and will adopt those bylaws on March 21st. And so it just goes to show that even your work, all of you collectively, it is carrying on and it has reached even beyond the boundaries of your own municipality. I think that, you know, Martin Luther King said it best, that anyone can be great because everyone can serve. And I just thank all of you for your service, you know, to the community. And I just know I'm so proud of the work that my brother, you know, contributed in his public service there in Eugene. I can take a lot of credit in that. I was the sibling that in 1985 moved to Eugene, and it was because of a visit to me that my when I was a grad student at the University of Oregon, that he decided to make Eugene his home. And I left after a few years, but he never left. And Eugene is definitely a better place because of him. And so again, thank you for just being a part of his journey. Of course, we will all miss him, but as I look at the bylaws, even in Little Rock, just know that a part of him and a part of you will reach even beyond the borders of Lane County.
Thank you so much, Lynette. Thank you for letting us borrow your brother for many years. I saw Sandy's hand was raised as well, Holly.
Sorry. Just a second.
Sandy, we're going to promote you to panelist to allow you to speak as well.
Good evening. How is
Good evening,
everybody doing?
Sandy.
Good evening. Thank you for inviting me to this. This was just a really nice tribute to Dallas. I have met several of you in a meeting that I attended back in December. So it's really nice to see you all again too. I can tell you one thing, that he was so passionate about being a police commission. He would call me like 3 days prior to it to tell me all about what the agenda was going to be. And then that evening he would always call. Now, remember, you cannot call me because I'm in the meeting, in the commission meeting. Like, okay. So then he would always call me right afterwards because he was so excited to let me know how it went. So I just want to let you know that each one of you touched him as well as he touched you. And he was so passionate about what he was doing. And each and every one of you, I feel like I know you because he has spoken to me about you over the last few years that him and I had reconnected. And he was just really proud of all the work that you all were doing. So thank you for being part of his life and allowing him to be a part of Eugene and your lives as well.
Thank you, Sandy, and thank you for making his life such a pleasant place to be. He was so happy when he got with you, and you were one of the many people he bragged about as well, and talked about all the people that you knew, and he could not wait to bring your contacts into his network to share with all of us.
Thank you.
Well, now I really don't know how to go to business after that. So I did want to introduce, we have a new minutes recorder. Lydia is joining us this evening. She's off camera, so those of you on Zoom can't see her, but she is here and she has a beautiful service dog with her. I'm a little bit jealous because that dog is absolutely gorgeous. Our previous meeting, under the table, yes. Our previous meeting was on Thursday, February 8th. And we had a robust conversation around the report from Chief Skinner. And we continued our review of policy 1210 for the public safety cameras. That conversation was extended to this evening. And there was additional conversation on recruitment and retention. We have time on our agenda to review the minutes. I am looking for a motion to approve the minutes that have been submitted to us. Commissioner Lemons.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate that we have a new minutes recorder, so I'm not going to really delve too much into it. I would really appreciate on page 9, Scott Lemons simply said that the motion was restated. I'm pretty sure I said I thanked him for restating my motion. So I had a lot more to say, but we have a new minutes recorder, and I know she's listening. Minutes should be about, what was discussed and equal weight, especially when it comes to adverbs and adjectives, should be given to each commissioner or left out, and also, because we're on the minute subject, I would like to propose that because the city of Eugene has moved to move with a smaller minutes because it's on the YouTube channel. Therefore, if they're going to do that, because it's very hard to search, I think YouTube, the link should be at the top, and then the time stamps should be on all of the statements. And I don't know if that needs a motion, but I'm not going to be voting to approve these minutes yet.
Thank you, Commissioner Lemons. So other than Commissioner Lemons, is there a motion to
Move approval.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
I'll second.
Okay.
Is,
Thank
is,
you,
is
Commissioner.
that is that with the amendment on changing page 9, taking out simply from my statement?
Sure.
It was not a simple statement.
Councilor Ye, do you second?
Oh,
the
yeah.
amendment? Thank you. So as I understand it, the motion is we are approving the minutes with the change made as requested by Commissioner Lemons. And Holly, would you speak for just a moment as far as the guidance that has been provided to as far as the minutes?
Sure. So I received guidance from our city manager's office in regards to how minutes should be recorded and the information that should be included in the minutes. And I've shared that with our new notes recorder. So moving forward, you'll probably see a different format with more concise information that includes motions made and just kind of the basic subject matter of what's being discussed. So it's not so detailed.
Thank you,
Okay.
Holly. I actually appreciate the recommendation for including the minute timestamp for the motions. That does make things more helpful. So we'll move into liaison reports. Judge Lyman.
Well, I think we should vote on the.
Yeah, we had to
Oh,
vote.
thank you,
That's
thank you.
okay.
Somebody's got to keep me honest here. Will you please restate that in the form of a motion?
Well, there is a motion.
Oh, there
so
is a
I
motion.
just think we have to vote.
on it. Thank you very much.
Sure.
All right, all in favor of approving the minutes from the last meeting with the requested edits by Commissioner Lemon, say aye.
Right.
Any opposed, please say no.
And I'm just going to abstain because of the concerns that I already discussed.
Okay,
And
we have
I'm
an
abstaining
abstention.
because I was absent.
2 abstentions,
3.
3 abstentions.
Yeah, I'm not happy with the minutes. I'm very glad that we have a new person.
All right, do we have enough ayes to carry it? So we had Zelenka and Yang saying aye. Commissioner Parham and Commissioner Mogart, how do you vote on the minutes?
Yeah, I mean, I would vote in favor.
Thank you.
I'm abstaining at this time.
4 abstentions. And I actually have to change my vote from an aye to an abstention as well. So we will work on the minutes and bring them back at our next meeting.
I believe that they pass because nobody's voting against it, so the
Right, the majority.
majority is still in favor.
Well,
Yeah.
then I'll vote against. Just to put one on there.
Thank you, Commissioner Lemons.
Yeah, they pass. You just have the majority voting in favor. And if you abstain, it's like you're not in full.
Thank you, Commissioner Shivers, for that.
I do have a question about, so the folks that abstained, what is it that you want? I mean, the city council wrangled with this for years, literally, and they are where we landed, and that policy is not up for debate, is that they are summaries of the meeting. They're not verbatim transcripts. They're just supposed to kind of highlight the things that were said. And if you want to find out exactly what happened, you can go to the recording of it, the video of it. So is it, I'm trying to understand what was.
I can speak from
characterization of the words used, or the brevity of it, or what?
Commissioner Shivers' hand is up. Commissioner Parham, we'll have you next. Commissioner Shivers raised his hand first.
Yeah, there's as I tried to communicate to the last minutes recorder, there's a few key things that I would like to see in the minutes. The first one is timestamp, like how it relates to the agenda and how it relates to the YouTube video for each motion and for each thing that we as a commission say that we want to follow up on. Those are the 2 main things. So if we make a motion or if we ask the chief to follow up on some question that we have, those are the things that I want to see in the minutes. Other than that, I don't need the details of what's discussed. I don't need the details for every little thing. If I want the full picture, I go to the YouTube video and I rewatch it. I'm very glad that they're on the YouTube channel. If we're talking about like wish lists here, I wish that the YouTube channel had timestamps incorporated as well for the agenda items. But if we're just talking about the minutes, it's just motions and what we want to follow up on for me.
Thank you, Commissioner Shivers. Commissioner Parham.
Yeah, thank you. There were very specific statements that I made that were not included in the minutes. And I think that it's important that the statements that I had made were included in the minutes. And I think that was a glaring omission, and that is why I'm abstaining from passing these minutes.
Thank you for that. Commissioner Lemons.
Thank you, Chair. So yeah, my biggest problem was mostly talked about, but if we're gonna talk about the tone of a meeting within minutes, which I don't think is even necessary within minutes, then equal weight should be given to each person. So when I was reading these minutes, I could see Chief Skinner had an entire paragraph, And then, oh no, Scott had a 1 minute statement where it was simply restated, So if we're going to include, tone stuff, then it should be equal. But I don't think we should include tone stuff. And that's why I'm actually a no.
Thank you. So I believe the motion passed to approve the minutes. We have the feedback from the commissioners who abstain.
We want to see if the minutes report got all
All right, we'll move to liaison reports. And Judge Lyman, will have you go first with your report from CRB, Civilian Review Board.
Thank you. CRB has met twice. The calendar worked that way this time since we were last here. And both meetings, the case review involved the use of body-worn cameras by officers, and the CRB has had a general discussion going about that when video's not available, why and how often is that happening? And the auditor brought us two months in a row cases. In the first case, 2 months in the previous month's meeting, the officers admitted that they had not turned it on and stipulated that they had violated the policy. And for those who don't know, the policy is that if they expect to encounter someone that I don't want to misstate the policy, but it should be on unless they're in a tactical discussion or there's reasons to mute it. But if there is expected to be leave the vehicle and encounter people, and there's a suspicion that there might be criminal activity, they should have their cameras activated. And then the last meeting was we forgot kind of in the instant of having to jump out of the car and encounter a bunch of people, 2 officers neglected to activate their cameras. And the interesting discussion was the policy is they shall activate the camera. And we had a situation in a review on Tuesday night where the chief and the auditor were aligned in a decision of insufficient evidence of not turn, even though the officers said we didn't turn them on, we forgot, and we got it activated the discussion about the specific intent, how important. We have a policy that says they shall, and yet here we had officers not being subject to policy violations who admitted that they didn't turn them on. And it was an interesting conversation, and the conversation has progressed at CRB even to the point of we're discussing the technology. We had a nice presentation by Lieutenant Tinseth about the technology of these cameras and how sometimes with the lights and siren activated, they automatically turn on. There's different things, and some on the CRB Express, they should just always be on, and the muting should be when you have to take action as opposed to having to take action. And just to sum it up, this case was one where there was a use of force and a use of force report and a use of force investigation, and there happened to be a videographer riding with the officers, and absent that the happenstance fact, this would have been a case of a use of force without body-worn evidence, and that would have been distressing because the community seems to value the body-worn cameras. So that was a long-winded liaison report. I'm sorry for that, but and then we're going to hear from the auditor tonight about this ongoing issue that we're hearing about, potentially developing some data sets of what's going on with the department, if there is anything going on with the department and the treatment of women here. And so we'll hear from her, and that'll be, I think it's on our agenda. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Well,
Yes.
what was the result of your technology investigation? Does the technology allow you them to just automatically go on when you get out of a car or something like that?
Yes, I believe, and the chief can correct me, I believe if the lights have been activated, the overheads in the car, that the camera there's a signal and it will activate as they get out of the car. But in this instance, they did not. There was no travel to the scene, so that that automatic thing didn't happen. And so
But ours does do that automatically.
I believe that's an instance when it does, but in this case, that didn't happen. And then the concerns, of course, are that there are, people have to have lived their lives, and if it's always on, there will be things that will be captured that would, shouldn't be, the bathroom or things like that. However, it's a question of whether if it keeps happening, that we're getting more and more where they're off, and it's because, as someone said at the meeting, the training thing is you just have to tap your chest. So it's that they all know how to do it. It's a question of, in the stress of a moment, right? Yeah. And it doesn't appear that in this case, with the videographer, there was no attempt to evade responsibility by not activating, because they knew that they had someone that were following them around with the camera, so could have influenced it. Thank you.
Chief, did you want to add anything to that?
Nope.
Thank you. Commissioner Lemons, update for the Human Rights Commission.
Thank you, Chair. So the Human Rights Commission did not meet last month, so therefore I have no liaison reports, but I will use this time for my commissioner report. I want to thank Judge Lehman for bringing that up, because it fully ties into the second internal affairs case that we saw that was included in the meeting packet. I do not really understand why it was insufficient evidence that he decided not to turn the camera on. I think it's policy that the camera should always be on, or at least on in specific incidents. And I would like to propose, not an motion, but just to you, Chief Skinner, that I know data storage is expensive and it might take a person to delete things, but maybe consider keeping body cameras on at all times to take out subjective issues. And honestly, it would put EPD in a much better legal footing. Second of all, I was just told today that our subcommittee for hiring the next commissioners, all of the interviewees are now going to be interviewed by Mayor Vinnis. So first of all, like, we put a lot of work into that. I just want to say that. So I'm coming from personal perspective, but I want to put it on the record. Mayor Vinnis, please listen and really pay attention to our recommendations, because Dallas was a huge part of that subcommittee, first of all. So that was one of the reasons that was taken out of our hands. Second of all, it was the loss of Commissioner Dominguez. And we were considering that in the subcommittee because that happened after that announcement. And lastly, please do not charge volunteers with 7 to 8 hours of work if you're just going to take it out of our hands anyways. And then lastly, I'm looking forward to the camera discussion again. I really don't know why it didn't pass last time, but I will certainly make a more clarified motion, and I hope it can go forward. And thank you.
I think Commissioner Shivers raised his hand first, and then we'll go to Councilor Ye. Commissioner Shivers?
Yeah, I just want to say that the commission itself took on the role of winnowing down applicants and doing that initial interview. And up till now, it's been an incredible help to the mayor, and she's been highly respectful. So I just want to acknowledge both your concerns, Scott, and the role of the mayor in making the final decision.
Okay, thank you, Councilor.
Yeah, it sounds like she's not going to take the recommendations into consideration when she makes her choice.
Okay. All right, so our liaisons from City Council. Councilor Ye?
I don't have anything.
Have we done anything? We're on break. A long time ago, I realized that council break meant staff gets a break from council, because the council actually doesn't get a break. So we're actually on break, but we did do some heavy duty stuff coming up, or the last couple of months, in particular the parking ordinance that's still coming back to us. One of the big feedback that I got from a bunch of people was that I didn't know about it. And Jennifer brought this up at the meeting, was because the way that we write our agenda items is like, so that particular one about impoundments and fines for parking and how they're actually done is in the parking order. So the agenda item comes up as parking. And people go, well, that's not what we're talking about. Well, yeah, it is. And it's kind of difficult to figure out how you would do it otherwise. And any subjective criteria that you use to describe an agenda item would just, whoever wrote them would be in constant barrage of being wrong. So we'll probably stick with that, but this makes it a little bit more difficult to sometimes decipher what's going on, because sometimes it feels like inside baseball. And so we had very few people respond in the public testimony about it. But then last, when was it, Monday, we had like 15 people show up after it got surfaced a little bit more and spread around. So I think that's something that we need to work on, but it's also part of the job of the council and other folks to make sure that those agenda items get known about in the community.
Thank you. We'll move into commissioners' comments, and again, we'll go in alphabetical order. So we'll start with Commissioner Booker.
Thank you, Chair. My comments have to do with the incident that happened at Willamette High School. There was a young Black boy named Julian that was severely beaten by a white student that followed him home and basically beat him to the point to where he had to have facial reconstruction. As I'm aware, EPD is very aware of this situation. I spoke with the mother today, and she voiced her concerns as to the response, the treatment she received, and how EPD handled the situation. So I wanted to share those sentiments. She basically felt that the officer was dismissive at first when they first arrived to, I guess, gather or collect information. She felt that it did switch once she showed her aggravation with the police and how they were addressing her and calling it telling her that it wasn't a racial incident before they even collected her side of the story. She did give a praise to Officer Cooper, to say she did a wonderful job, and that it was better than she had expected to be her interaction with EPD. She would like to see more training on the approach when someone is responding to a racially motivated situation, especially even if they think it's not racially motivated until they completely cancel that out. And she also said about the labeling of a situation. When they tell her that the situation is not racial, when she's telling them it is before they are actually gathering the information. As I'm aware, the boy who committed the assault got arrested. More issues dealing with that, but more importantly, the issues started on campus 20 days before this assault took place. So even though that it took place off campus, and I know Willamette is probably trying to wipe his hands of it, it did take a lot of the incidents and the bullying took place on campus 20 days prior to the incident happening. So it's a lot of, there was a lot of build up to this assault. And she's actually on here in the meeting tonight. She's actually one of the attendees. I don't know if you would like to speak to her now while she's on right now, considering how long our meeting is. But her name is Miss Jennifer Sherman. She's actually one of the attendees if you would like to speak to her and hear her voice on the matter. But that's what I wanted to reserve my commissioner comments for, is to address this situation.
Thank you, Commissioner Booker. We will, during public comment, we will welcome input from Jennifer. Thank you for inviting her to the meeting this evening. Commissioner Lyman, did you have a commissioner comment?
I did not. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Lemons, is your commissioner comment already covered in your liaison report?
Yes, it is. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Mogart.
Yeah, as we're not in the room, I was unclear as to what Alan or Counselor Zelenka had said regarding the selection process.
Oh, I said that the mayor will take into consideration the recommendations when she makes her decision.
Yeah, okay. I just wanted to be clear on that. Yeah, all right, thank you. That's it. No comments.
Thank you. Commissioner Parham?
Yeah, I'm just curious if the department has recently seen the Eugene Weekly that came out last week. And I'm also curious, I would love to get some guidance and clarification on how the department plans to address and investigate and possibly prosecute cases that involve University of Oregon students. I know that there's been discussion that EPD will not respond to parties and whatnot, but I'm curious if that falls, if those policies also fall towards roofies, sexual assault, and that type of matter. Thank you.
Chief, do you want to respond now or wait until?
I'll wait for my chief's report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Shivers?
Yeah. I want to. Most of what I've said has been taken care of already between liaison reports and Dallas's memories of him. I don't see Leah in the
She's here.
attendees.
She's here in the room with us. She's off camera right now.
Oh, okay. Fabulous. I was just about to say that Dr. Booker's guest and her should connect if they haven't already.
Thank you. Councilor Ye, do you have commissioner comments?
I don't, thank you.
Councilor Zelenka?
Yeah, Commissioner Parham, I wish you had been at the meeting a couple of weeks ago where we had about 25 or 30 U of O students coming to council saying that the police were acting too harshly on them on parties and that we should leave them alone. So I'm not sure where you heard the police don't react to that.
Well, I mean, we could make it about parties, but I think the big thing is that there was an article recently that came out, and I would like you to hold comment until you read the article so you can understand what I'm trying to address. Commissioner, thank you.
All right, Councilor Zelenka, please proceed.
I unfortunately wasn't able to make the last meeting because I was in Washington, D.C. And but I wanted to, I did make an opportunity to watch the meeting and see what transpired. But I wanted to make sure everybody was on the same page about what the role is of the police commission. And that this body is an advisory board to the city council, the city manager, and to the chief. And the role is to make recommendations on police policy and procedures to achieve a safer community. You know, our mission's right at the top of every agenda. And I very much appreciate everybody's passion and interest in all of these issues and how we do it. But it is and we need to keep that mission at the forefront of when we act and when we talk about stuff, and not get too far afield from what our real mission is. And so while I felt while I wasn't here, I got to watch it, but I felt like folks on the commission went a little far afield of our mission in the last meeting, especially without hearing the whole story. And we're not the city's HR division, and we are not the auditor, and we're not the CRB, and we don't have a budget. We don't have staff to direct to go do stuff for us. What we say, how we say it, and what we do is very important, and it's very important to the credibility of this body. So our role is to make recommendations to the city council, the city manager, and to the chief. And I think when we do what we do, we need to keep that in mind of what we're trying to accomplish and put it in that kind of context. and as we move forward, keep that in mind as we
Thank you, Councilor Zelenka. I will move into the Law Enforcement Mental Health and Wellness Committee update. We did meet last week and we were joined by Dr. Ryan Roberts, who's one of the psychologists or psychiatrists? Psychologists that conducts the mental health pre-employment evaluation for EPD. And he went over some of the process with us as far as the evaluation that they conduct in their office. And I understand it's virtual since they are Seattle-based. They do use the personal history questionnaire that is filled out by the applicant, and then they also use their own separate questionnaire. My understanding is that that's the California Psychological Inventory, and it's slightly more medical focused than the PHQ that EPD provides to them. He did personal history questionnaire. Thank you for checking me on that. Police psychology, he did actually mention, is a specialty recognized by APA, which I am assuming is the American Psychologists Association. He mentioned that their interviews are typically anywhere from 30 minutes to about 2 hours, and that they are not graded on a pass-fail scenario, but rather in an A, B, C, D, or F grading. And they do not necessarily have disqualifying factors, but they are grading more on suitability for employment with the EPD. We were also joined by Emily McCauley, who is a supervisor for the Peer Support and Resiliency team. And she shared with us a lot of the updates that they've made within their team and their focus. In particular interest was describing the initial training for certification in their team. They do have a 3-day course, and currently there's no set guideline for baseline retraining or recertification. That question was posed by Commissioner Lemons as far as what is required for on an ongoing basis. PSRT does pivot more towards using the term emotionally significant event rather than the more limiting critical incident. They do provide support for family issues, other things besides things that we would typically think of, such as officer-involved shootings. And it seems that the motto that they are using is to support, listen, and refer. Over the past 5 years, they have expanded their focus from critical incidents to overall wellness. And one of the initiatives in that was the cardiac testing that Chief Skinner brought to EPD. It was entirely voluntary, but they had, as I understand it, over 100 employees that voluntarily participated in the cardiac screening. Top priorities for increased training in the future would be crisis communication, additional training for family support, and always suicide prevention. Commissioners Booker, Parham, and Lemons, if there's anything I missed, please call it out.
No, not something you missed, but more something that we're going to be highlighting going forward is actually diving down into the training, the future training, and the definition of peer support. And I expect our commission or our subcommittee to come to the commission with a recommendation about all of that.
Thank you, Commissioner Lemons. And with that, we're going to invite Leah Pitcher, the independent police auditor, to the table. She will describe for us some of the work that her team is doing. I'll remind the commissioners that we do follow Robert's rules and that we are expected to behave with a certain amount of decorum, which includes not necessarily interrupting someone who is currently speaking and has the floor. Leah, I'll turn it over to you. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Please, if there's any trouble with hearing me, wave or do a hands, show your thumbs or something, because I want to make sure that everyone can hear what we're talking about. So,
Commissioner Lemons is already asking you to speak up.
It seems like there's a bit of a delay. Is anyone else getting that?
That's just like
Yeah, I'm getting a delay too.
Okay. Where's the mic?
It's on the.
It's on there. Yes, sir.
Okay. Or do you want to?
All right. Now I know where the mic is, so I'm going to try to focus on you guys because they can all hear me. Good. Okay, let's go. Thank you for having me tonight. I really don't want to take up a lot of your time. Your time is important and you're focused on policy and also just it's a hard night. I know we're trying to stay focused on business at this point, but I just want to acknowledge that yeah, it's an emotionally difficult night. So thank you for having me. I'm your independent police auditor, your friendly neighborhood auditor. And we have been I want to do a really quick overview of our history, when we were set up, what our role is, and then a little bit about our work that's more related to what you all have been talking about the last few months. So civilian oversight was voted in by the Eugene voters in 2005. Our office was set up in the end of 2006. Our mission is focused on the receipt and classification of complaints about police officers. And we take complaints about all EPD employees, that's sworn, non-sworn, it's everybody. We monitor the internal investigations, we take part in those, we help with interviewing, we meet about investigative strategies, we are really heavily involved in how those investigations take place. And then we're also tasked with reporting on trends and making recommendations about police practices and policy similar to what you all do, but it's just through a different avenue, right? And then one really big key about our office is we are independent from the rest of city government. Our independence is protected by the city charter. I report directly to city council. Thank you. Hi, bosses. And I don't report to the city manager. I don't report to the chief. We work together, but I don't work for the police and don't work for the city manager. The other two things that are protected by ordinance that are super important are one, our access to information. I'm guaranteed unlimited, unfettered access to anything related to an internal investigation. I've never been denied anything that I've asked for. We have a really, thank you, Cindy. I see you behind me. She always gives me whatever we ask for. And then our funding. One thing that a lot of oversight agencies deal with is we can get funded out of existence, and our funding is actually protected by ordinance as well. So Eugene has a really robust oversight system. I talked to a lot of people across the country who are very jealous about our oversight system, and so I'm grateful for what I've been working with. So more specific to the situation of women in PPT and the email and the discussions you guys have had over the last few months, I want to clarify just what we've been doing. I haven't jumped in these discussions because I don't feel like it's my place when, the function of this meeting and this group and this time, in my view, is for, the community to sort of have a funnel into influencing police policy. And I don't want to be interrupting that or seem to be quashing that or anything like that. But I'm always here if anyone has questions, either in the attendees, as Commissioner Shivers noted, or here in person as it happened for the last few months. So if you ever have a question about anything related to a complaint, feel free to ask. That's why I'm here. So we did investigation related to harassment complaints at EPD over the latter half of last year. It recently closed. The CRB voted on Tuesday night to review that case at their April meeting. So I'm going to be working with the folks involved to ensure as much anonymity and protection of the victims as we can. Public records law prevents me from talking about the details of that case or who's involved or anything like that, so I'm not going to do that here. But the CRB has given the entire investigative file, all of it. It's a lot of homework on the CRB. Thanks, Alan. And they'll be talking about that again in compliance with public records law next month. Related to that and related to the email, which I received too, I sort of took a moment and tried to be thoughtful. And I thought about, if we want to be making intentional recommendations, then we need to have real data and not stories. Like one person's experience is 100% their experience, and it may be the experience of others and probably not the experience of everyone. And I want to just get as much information as I can about that before we, I don't want to make recommendations based on one person's experience, right? I want to make an actual, thoughtful move forward. So we're working with partners at the Employee Resource Center, and which is most people will call it Human Resources, but it's Employee Resource Center, and EPD to get demographic data. Lindsay from my office is back there. Did an amazing proposal about how do we look at demographics over the past 10 years to look at recruitment, special teams, promotions, retention, all of those things. So we can actually be really thorough and have that informed look. Everything we do as public, we'll be reporting out on that data as soon as we have it sort of in a cohesive place. I'm hoping we can do that within 6 months. I can come back and talk to you guys about that then. I'll be talking about our annual report right around that time, so it might all work out. But that's just kind of a real high level look at what we've been doing related to that. So I'm here if you have questions. I also, like I said, I've got a stack. Oh, look, Mr. Lemons already. What do you have?
Commissioner Lemons.
Thank you, Chair. So I would, first of all, I want to thank the Civilian Review Board for taking this on. I want to thank you, Leah, for taking this seriously. I know, and I can fully understand the opinion that like you can't take one specific instance and apply that to nation. But with the K-Val thing that came out and the fact that 3-ish officers, I'm not too firm on that, have also filed a lawsuit within the last month, I think makes that a much more serious thing. And you know, I know the police commission's role is policy and not, accountability or the civilian review boards or your job, Leah. But I do see the police commission being able to make policies that ensure that reviews are done to make sure that a culture, a healthy culture is in place. So I do see what you're saying, but I also see the role in the police commission. So thank you.
Yeah. Sorry, I don't mean it. I hear that. That's why, I'm hoping it was helpful when I sent the position paper sort of thing on some policies to help women in policing leadership. I think that got attached. But just, I think that's the thing is I don't want to at all sound like I'm downplaying anybody that anybody has a terrible work experience here is upsetting, right? I don't want that for anyone. But I think this is also not something where we have to reinvent the wheel, right? This is a problem that is in policing internationally. It's not unique to EPD. There's a lot of really smart people out there looking at how do we make policies that make more family-friendly workplace, a more female-friendly workplace, how do we do a more inclusive workplace specific to policing? So the PERC report I sent has some of that. There's a 30 by 30 initiative that has a lot of information out there. Like there's just oodles of information out there that I think could be helpful as a starting point. Sorry, I jumped on that.
No, I appreciate you. Thank you for doing your work.
Judge Lyman.
Thank you, Leah. I support the idea of the auditor collecting information data so that it's not anecdotal. I think the Jody Unruh piece on K-Val, the anecdotal stuff, the law, everything you mentioned, Commissioner, is enough that, and taking into mind what Councilor Zelenka said just a few minutes ago, I came here prepared to just say, I just want to hear that human resources, it is, that this is on the screen. It can't be ignored. I want women and minorities to feel at home in this department and to have opportunity for promotion on special units. And it is anecdotal at this point what's going on, but it's enough anecdotal that it rises to the point to recommend to the council that HR, and if it's enough that it's a consultant or whatever. But I think that the commission's role is to come back and hear from the manager or council or whoever it is that yes, we heard this, we took the research that the auditor's office did, we conducted surveys, but yeah, it's not our place to manage this, but to ignore it, it is impactful. If we're considering the mental health and wellness of the officers, then we're certainly considering this issue as part of our table. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Booker.
Well said. I think what you just said was remarkable. Thank you for saying that. The auditor is, your name is Leah. I didn't get your last name. Sorry.
Sure, it's pitcher, like a baseball pitcher.
Okay. And just for the people that are attending, anyone can contact you, correct?
Yes, thank you. Yeah.
So how would they go about contacting you personally? Or if you get an assignment somewhere else, of contacting your office to engage with you in incidents that happen?
Yeah, no, thank you so much, because I wanted to come back to what you had brought up in your comments earlier. So yes, so there's a lot of different ways to contact us. Our office is at 101 East Broadway. We're on the second floor next to Legal Aid. So that's one way. We accept walk-ins most business hours. I would say Fridays are questionable, frankly. But phone call, we have someone taking complaints over the phone. It's 541-682-5016. We have
682, I'm sorry, 682, what was the last four?
5016.
Okay, thank you.
And then we also have on our website, so if you just Google like police auditor, or you go to the city website and look for the auditor page, we have an online complaint portal that we instituted 2 years ago now. And that's actually, it's been really, really helpful, because you can submit videos, photos, if you have media or other things that you want to put with that, then you can do it through the online portal, and then we can actually communicate with you through that to let you know where your complaint is in the process. And then I had one more. Oh, email. Yeah, police auditor at eugene-boar.gov, and that'll get to my whole team. So one of us will get that.
All right. And thank you for what you do. Is I'm so glad it was voted on, and you are. I would like to make policy around you joining our commission. Because the information that I think you possess would definitely help us in actually understanding where our focus needs to be in terms of policies. And I understand, like, our mission is recommendations, but again, each person that sits on there is a representation of our community. So we have to hear things in order to project those things into the meeting, talk about those things and discuss those things in order to understand what policies need to be made. So although it's a recommendation committee, a lot of discussion still needs to be taking place, i.e. talking to the mother that just went through the racial incident with her son being critically injured. That's definitely something I would like to talk to you about further. But, you know, Eugene has a lot of racial incidents that a lot of times when you look at the racial report comes out, fall under other. There is no racial category so you can't really see how many racial incidents have happened because there's no category for it other than other. So it's good to be able to have you in your office as a point for the community to know, because they only know when they're informed. So having you here is a big win for the community. And I hope more people reach out to you and involve you, because I'm very integrated in the community, especially Black community, and it's needed. That kind of attention is needed. So thank you for being here. Thank you for all that you are doing, and I look forward to talking with you later.
Thank you. Yeah, and I want to be clear. I'm available if commissioners have questions or just want to check in and learn more. I'm always available. I'm a public servant, so that's what I do.
Thank you.
Commissioner Shivers.
Yeah, thank you so much, and always good to have you back in here, Leah. I made the metaphor last time, a sports metaphor in terms of incidents. I think the focus of your office has, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there's sort of two sides of it. There's the everyday maintenance of a good culture and a solid professional workforce. And then there's also the community spanning and very concerning incidents, usually which then get reviewed by the Civilian Review Board. Not always, but usually, right? where does the human resources, we've been told, is key in making sure that we have an understanding of what's going on, especially when, you know, nobody reports something to you. And it sounds like they don't have a lot of eyes on what they do. Does that mean we then need to reinvent the wheel of exit interviews in the police department? Or is there, like, where's the disconnect here?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting point, right? Because for community complaints, that's sort of, we're supposed to be the main place for community complaints, but internal complaints can go to a supervisor, they can go to the ERC, they can go to us, there's a few different ways to go. And obviously, the auditor's office is not always going to be the first choice for internal. Like, and we get a fair number of internal complaints. I think we've done a good job overall with developing a good, trustworthy reputation, but there's a lot of different ways it can go. I think it's interesting. It's something that we're kind of, it's come up over the years, right? When we get a complaint that's more HR oriented than actually like misconduct oriented. And so that's one of those judgment calls that I make as the auditor is, how do we classify this? We classify it as an internal affairs investigation and partner with HR to make sure we don't miss any HR issues. And that's kind of what we've been doing with several, not several, but a fair number of them. We're trying to develop that process where we're doing it as a team rather than siloing off any portion of complaints. But at the same time, if it's really just a straight HR issue and it doesn't rise to the level of misconduct, that's something that I'm gonna send over there and they keep me apprised. And then we just see if it develops, right?
And does that, as they keep you apprised, does that wrap back around to keep chief apprised?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, so the teams all meet regularly to talk about what we're working on, right? So there's no lack of communication about what cases are open right now.
Great to hear. One last question. Do you have any recommendations for how we can be more proactive throughout this process? Because we've had some ideas, focus groups and internal groups, which I think are a great idea, but I'd love more if you've got them.
That's a really good question. I would say that I always kind of, in my head, I think of police commission as sort of the proactive side and I'm more the reactive side, because I come in after the thing has happened, right? So to ask me to switch like that is hard. But I will try to think of some good ideas and pass those along to you guys.
Yeah, I have the same breakdown where we need to be more proactive and forward thinking, and you're there to catch and count the goals. Thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Parham?
Yeah, I was just curious if the auditor's office or even the department keeps statistics on the number of like sexual assaults or gendered violence that gets reported, and then the not even the clearance rate, but are those like what happens after they're reported? Are those statistics available?
Can I clarify, are you saying sexual assaults like in the community or with, yeah?
Yeah, in the community.
Okay, so we are really focused on complaints of EPD employees, right? So if the sexual assault is involving an EPD employee, which then that would come through our office, right? If it's a community, if it's a crime, like what I think we were talking about earlier, that's something that EPD would be looking at and tracking, and we wouldn't get involved unless there was a complaint. Does that sound right to you?
Yeah, I think if we're talking about Commissioner Parham, if we're talking about incidents where police officers are suspected of sexual assault in our community, then that would be a crime. Certainly, this would come through the auditor's office and then ultimately be criminally investigated from an outside agency.
Yeah.
And then that would follow that trajectory around a criminal investigation, complementary with administrative leave and all of the things that go within that. And all those statistics are available. The challenge is when we think about sexual assault, like just in general in the community, which is a crime as well, those statistics are we grab those internally. You have the added nuance of it not only being a crime and being investigated, but also being a personnel matter and having some protection around that as well. And so, but all the statistics are available to us.
Commissioner Carl, so we, I come every fall and talk about our annual report, but obviously it's not like a big draw, and that's okay. But all of our annual reports are online, and so we actually include in appendices every single complaint we've gotten during the year and what happened with it. So, so all of that stuff's available on our website if that's helpful.
It is, thank you.
Councilor Zelenka.
Yeah, Commissioner Lyman, I'm glad you said what you said, because I think we're on the same page. Our job isn't to manage an issue like that. We're not the HR department. Our role is exactly what you said, which is when something raises enough awareness within this body that we should make a recommendation to the city manager, the chief, that be investigated. And that's exactly what the role should be of this body, because we're not the HR department, and we're not the police auditor, and we don't have staff to do investigations for us, and we're not the CRB. So that's not our role. But as these issues come up, our role is to make sure that people are aware that this is an issue that we think is of concern and that needs to be investigated and dealt with in an appropriate fashion. And then all the process happens around that to make sure all the parts get heard and everybody gets heard and all parts of the story. And most of the time we never hear any about that. And they end up being personnel issues, which by law, you all know, or you never hear about them again. You know, unless the person gets fired, like in the instance of that we're talking about, that the process actually did work. That officer ended up getting fired. And so, but that's not very often that we get to hear what the results are, unfortunately, personnel matters because of Oregon law.
Commissioner Lemons.
Thank you, Chair. And I'll certainly address Councilor Zelenka's points as to our role and how limited our role is and how utterly BS that is at a certain point in the meeting. But Leah, I would so you said that you cover mostly civilian complaints. Officer Cardwell's complaint was not a civilian complaint. So I appreciate that CRB is looking at it, but when it comes from within the organization, how is that dispatched instead of going through the CRB? Because I don't think those are the same systems.
No, sorry, and I think I must have misspoke because that's not quite what's right. So basically, our office is tasked with classifying all complaints, right? So mostly we take in a lot of community complaints. We take in a good number of internal complaints as well. We also take in a number of complaints where, you know, for instance, if there's a use of force and the supervisor's reviewing it and the supervisor sees an issue with that use of force, they're going to send that to IAI, is going to send that to us for classification, right? So every complaint, whether internal or external, comes through our office to decide whether it goes to an internal affairs investigation, to a supervisor, or, you know, how it gets handled. So everything, even internal and external, comes through us. Does that help?
Yeah. So to clarify, when a complaint comes in, whether it's IA or from a civilian, it goes to you and then you decide where it goes?
I classify the complaint. So I classify it, and then depending on that classification, EPD decides which specific person is going to be looking at it. And then I assign someone from my office, because I have a great team, to work with that EPD person to do the monitoring and participate in that investigation. I should say, IA is a great team too. I'm not being. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Please go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off. That's just.
I was just saying that the IA team is really great too. So sorry.
Okay. Yeah, no, I imagine y'all are on top of it, and thank you for that clarification. Yeah.
Commissioner Booker.
Oh yes. Miss Pitcher, you mentioned earlier that you were doing statistics or having numbers on recruitment and diversity and equity. Have you already finished that and you already have numbers for that, or is it ongoing?
It is ongoing work, yeah, so we made that request and because basically the between EPD and HR or the Employee Resource Center, we're trying to combine different groups of statistics, right? We're gonna work with different partners to combine all that information. And we have not done that yet. No. We will bring that. I mean, everything we do, we report on. So we will publish that when we're finished, but we're not done yet. Sorry.
Okay. Well, whenever that is finished, I would love to see if you could come back and speak with us. I know there's been, I've always been pushing for, we need to hire more Black officers. It's always been my thing. But I just would like to know where the road bump is and making that actually happen.
Sure.
I know we've discussed it in past meetings, but I would love to see what those numbers are once you finish that report. Thank you.
All right, I don't see any other hands raised. Leah, I would love for you to stay at the table while the chief gives his report in case there's anything else, unless the chief is done with you and he wants you to go now. Sure. Chief Skinner, your report, please.
I'll try to make this brief, and as usual, I'll try to maybe touch on a couple of things that I've heard in this meeting, just so that we can keep it really contemporary. The commission will be hopefully happy to hear that we're finishing up our first phase of the selection process for police officer this weekend. It started on Saturday, it finished yesterday, so it was 4.5 days of a lot of work. That culminated in us interviewing 43 police applicants over 2.5 days, which is the biggest number we've had in 6 years. We've got 21 people going to background right now. So we're looking forward to doing that work. That's always very hopeful when we have that many people that want to be a part of the team. So we'll wait until the backgrounds come back to see how many come to chief's interviews and then ultimately on to psych and medical for that. But we're very, very hopeful and encouraged by what we're seeing out of our recruiting team as we move forward. I don't have any demographic data at this point, but I'll certainly, when I get a chance to connect with the team, I'll certainly, as best I can, do that. Sometimes demographics are a little bit difficult because I don't want to make assumptions. I definitely know that that's an interest of the commission, and we'll certainly pay attention to that. Couple of things that were mentioned here that I'll point out. I'll start with the University of Oregon party, the Eugene Weekly story. Just in the way of background, there was a very large effort, mostly by the associated students at University of Oregon, to find a way for Eugene PD to back out of the weekend gatherings and the weekend things that are happening. In conjunction with them and in partnership with them, we came up with an opportunity to do kind of a party registry type of environment that would allow for people to register their parties, and then we'd have a point of contact that we would call in the event that we got complaints from neighbors in those particular areas. That seems to be working really well. And then in conjunction with UOPD asked to be the first touch for those things. They want to be the first ones to go. That's their kids, mostly not technically on campus, but whether it's fraternities, sororities, well, let's be honest, mostly fraternities and live out houses who are having the parties. They wanted to be able to do that and engage their Office of Student Conduct to be able to find a remedy for some of those things. So the Eugene Police Department is not doing party patrols right now, which is paying attention to that. And we're very pleased to take a kind of a back seat unless UOPD needs the assistance. We're asking them to kind of take the lead on that. In the event that there's a criminal investigation that results from that, UOPD certainly could take the lead on that. Sometimes they are resource strapped, and so we would take the lead on that because technically it's happened in the city of Eugene. So we would certainly take a lead on that. In this particular case with the suspected spiking of drinks or the drugging. That's a difficult case in the sense that we don't have a lot of physical evidence. It's a bit concerning that my understanding is these two young ladies went to a local Peace Health facility and asked to submit blood and urine to see if they had been drugged, and that was denied. And so we don't have any physical evidence. And so really what we're left with is trying to conduct an investigation to gain admission or a confession by somebody that may have been engaged in that. And as you can imagine, that's difficult to do. But it is an investigation that we take on and will assist UOPD or take over in its entirety if that's what UOPD needs us to do. And so that's something that's front of mind for us on that particular issue. On the incident that Commissioner Booker spoke of, that is a ongoing investigation. We have charged the juvenile with assault in second degree, which is a B felony, commensurate with the assault that we believe to have occurred. We are continuing that investigation to try and connect any dots that might be there as the law provides with respect to the elements of bias in the first degree, which is a C felony. And we're continuing to work that to see if we're able to see if the assault was specifically motivated by the perception of and I'm just using the word perception because that's what's in the law, the perception of a person's race, gender, disability. There's a lot of those things that are in there. And so Detective Cooper is working on that right now. The nuanced part of this is these are all school kids that go to school together. There's a lot of dynamics revolving there. There's a lot of history with the juvenile that was arrested. The first officer, as you can imagine, the first officer that investigated that was our school, our youth services officer. That's a part of Willamette. She's not with us here tonight, but she is the one that took the initial investigation as being assisted by Detective Cooper. In the event, aside from this event, in the event that we have an investigation or a contact where somebody believes that we didn't show up as authentically as we could, we didn't do the right things, we were remiss in our competency around the investigation, we were rude, we were discourteous, any of those things, those are all complaints that we receive throughout the year. Every year those things show up, and Leah's office is perfectly equipped to handle that complaint. And so for instance, if the mother of this other juvenile that was the victim is concerned with our level of professionalism and competency, that would be something that would directly fall within the auditor's office purview to do an intake on and ultimately classify, and then we would deal with it appropriately. So I hate to admit the fact that as it pertains to misconduct and complaints in general, is that we have a really robust system, and we're actually pretty good at this. We're pretty good and pretty efficient at looking at officers' behavior or employees' behavior. It's just not officers. The auditor's office governs the entire of the organization. So looking at employees' behavior and having Leah's office classify that, and then they are come alongside of us through the investigation up to and including the interviews that happen when it comes to the subject person or employee that's going on. So that's certainly an opportunity for the mother of that juvenile to express those concerns and have Leah hear that and classify that. And so I think the last thing that I would just say is just as we continue to navigate this difficult time around the concept of culture in any organization, police culture and in general, which in the 33 and a half years I've been doing this, I've found to be a work in progress from 1989 when I started to 2024. It continues to be a work in progress. I'm very proud of the fact, though, when we think about Leah's work at the auditor's office, as well as her team, and she does have a really cool team, is that I think it's notable, and she spends time in her annual report talking about this, the number of complaints that are generated internally, which means other police officers, other staff paying attention to what's going on and calling out bad behavior, calling out the things that they know to be wrong, calling out policy violations is, I think, extraordinarily high for a police department, which is a really good sign when you think about policing themselves. It's not just about what we get caught doing in the community. It's actually about what our peers are watching happening within the organization and basically saying that's not right and bringing it to our attention. And these instances of harassment or hostile work environment, those are oftentimes always internally generated. And we move on that. And then to Councilor Zelenka's point, the process deeply, deeply rooted and shrouded in a lot of different do's and don'ts and union contract and representation. But ultimately, if we do this right, then we are separating people from employment that don't deserve to be a part of this organization because they can't figure out a way to treat people with respect. And so, in both instances that I'm thinking of, that separation from employment has occurred. And so that's, unfortunately, sometimes that is the best outcome for an organization. So we constantly will and will be committed to making sure that those things are important. And in the event that the complaint around culture, the complaint about an organization really doesn't have an individual attached to it, has the organization attached to it, there's always opportunities, and I'm always welcome to the idea of somebody doing a cultural an audit coming in, being able to talk to my employees. I have nothing but openness when it comes to those types of things, as long as we're doing it thoughtfully and we're doing it professionally and we're doing it respectfully, to encourage participation and anonymity from people. We're happy to take a look at that. We're constantly working towards how we can be better. So I guess that's the last thing I would leave you with is in reflection over the last couple of months, as we've gone through some really tough investigations, and I still have to lead the men and women of this department through this tough time, is that we are deeply committed to being better. We're deeply committed to paying attention. We're deeply committed to creating a safe, not only physically, but psychologically safe environment for people to be heard. And we're doing some work around that. And I'm hopeful that we'll be able to report out on how that's going once it kind of more fully synthesizes around how that shows up in the organization. So.
All right, we have questions from some commissioners. Commissioner Parham?
Yeah, I was just curious if you would be able to walk me through. I mean, you kind of did those, so that's why I lowered my hand. But I think I just wanted a little more clarity around the procedures of what would happen if someone did report like that they were drugged at a party, with possibly like if they did have the test kit that said they were drugged, and then possibly if they did not have that. And I think you already kind of answered that. So
one of the things, Commissioner Parham, that's so important is, and sometimes one of the challenges we have when we think about these criminal investigations or the potential for an investigation like this is the timeliness of it. Because when you think about evidence, you think about if somebody is drugged, that evidence from the moment they're drugged, the body starts to metabolize that and the evidence starts going away pretty quickly. I don't know specifically on this one, but my sense is, based on what I've heard, is that these two individuals thought they had been drugged, maybe took it upon themselves to try and go get tested and didn't. And then there was a period of time after that law enforcement was made aware. And I don't know if it was EPD first or UOPD first. Again, I don't know all the details, but law enforcement was made aware of that. And if hindsight bias is always an interesting nuance. I wish, if we could rewind time and go back in time, and somebody calls us and says, I just got home, I think I've been drugged at a party, we're able to respond, then we could kind of shepherd a person through that with a healthcare provider for a blood or urine test, maybe be more successful as an outcome, capture that evidence, to at least determine whether or not there was a foreign substance involved there. And then we have to start that process of trying to figure out when and where and who. And some of that becomes much more difficult to do to get down to where that is. But
Is there a willingness from the force to standardize what you just described, in terms of when, because I'm just curious how, like what just transpired where the UO says, oh, that's not our department, and no one can really tell me like who was the first department to handle that call. So how do we get what you just described out of your own words? How do we get that streamlined and standardized so that a person who calls has that same experience to where they will be walked through?
I think what I would say is it's standardized in the sense that if somebody called EPD, let's remove this from being the University of Oregon campus-ish type of situation. If this was
But I think in this case, though, I'm sorry to cut you off, but I think in this case, the UO designation is the big thing because it seems there's a legal gray area right now because
that's where I was gonna go with this, is that there is some level of standardization around the investigation of these types of cases. Where this got, and again, what I don't know is I don't know when law enforcement was notified, if it was that night or if it was the next day. I don't know the answer to that. So where the gray area is, and really where we standardize this is in conversations with University of Oregon Police Department, that we say, your first touch on the party piece, which is what they want, any and all criminal conduct that may result. Now, this is also the slippery slope because there's criminal conduct that can occur that is more attached to like the noise ordinances and party that they're handling. But we can say if there's any significant criminal conduct that occurs in the Eugene jurisdiction, and we will take those cases. And we will take those cases. That's an easy one to memorialize, and an easy one between me and Chief Wade to be able to say, hey, slip through the cracks. If it was reported in a timely fashion, it slipped through the cracks. How do we make sure it doesn't slip through the cracks again? And that's a memorandum of understanding between the two organizations on who's going to do what. And then you rely on the officers on scene to recognize that and actually get it shipped to the right direction. So I think we're closer than maybe it feels like we are to make sure that this doesn't slip through the cracks. But, Chief Wade and I can probably pretty much agree how this is going to go down. And then once we get it, there's a lot of standardization on how we approach those things.
Thank you, Chief.
Yep.
Commissioner Booker.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Chair. I kind of I want to touch up on the situation I spoke about earlier. I kind of don't want the normacy of the police department to be clearly articulated by the allowance of behavior and the classification of behavior. And I say that because I think that there's a clash in the value system, one that permeates like at home and at home and community, and then there's the societal culture. Understanding that, and I say that to say, understanding how this young man was beat is a hate crime. I don't know the classification system of B to C felony, and I know you're ongoing with the investigation, but there's not a lot of wanting to call things as it is in Eugene. I'm finding in a lot of these arenas where racial evidence is present. Beating somebody to where their face is fractured while screaming the N-word, I mean, it gets no more racial than that. I understand your investigation is ongoing, but I do hope that the cultural translation here equates to a hate crime. And I hope that you find that and understand where I'm coming from when I say that. But I know the investigation is ongoing. Hopefully you get to hear from the young man's mother tonight. But there has to be some more cultural interpretation when it comes to the classification of these racial incidents. That was clearly a hate crime. But I would like to see where it goes in terms of changing this from a B to a C felony, but I just wanted to make that for the record.
Yeah, and I know sometimes I talk in things that after as many years as I've been doing this, I make these assumptions that people understand what I'm talking about, and I apologize for that. So the young man has been charged with a B felony, which is a higher classification than the bias in the first degree crime, which is a C felony. And so we always try to charge as quickly as we can apply the elements of the crime. We try and charge the highest level of crime we believe we have probable cause to believe to charge. And then an ongoing investigation, as we gather more information, might give us pieces of information that help us also have probable cause to believe another crime has occurred. And there's always an opportunity to charge that crime through the district attorney's office, because they handle all things juvenile. And that's where that decision will be made, is at the district attorney's office after the entirety of the investigation is done and written up, is they'll apply that based on the elements of the law, and then they will choose to charge what we do. Ours is just based merely in the early stages, a recommendation. It's a charging recommendation. Ultimately, the district attorney's office will choose to on what charges are appropriate based on what we find.
And I guess the confusion comes in is because did you see the young man's face, Chief?
I'm sorry?
Did you get to see the young man's face?
I've not seen the investigation.
Okay. I would welcome you to really pay attention to this particular case, because it's clearly a hate crime, and the way that this young man was beat while it's being filmed. And I think maybe KZI might have done a story on it, a very small piece on it. But there's so much more, especially talking to the mother today, that really struck me as to why we wouldn't, as a community, as a commission, wouldn't be behind this as a example of how we show up when racial incidents like this occur. I feel like when we allow things like this to be swept under the rug with other things, it allows for a culture to be, a racial culture to permeate and be born out of this. And especially the climate that we're about to go into with this election, which all of us know is coming. So we have to be, I think, in front of things like this. And it's good to see it be very welcoming, especially amongst the Black community, to see you out front of something as severe as this situation is. But hopefully you'll look at it and follow back up with it and hear the boy's mother. She speaks tonight. But I was sickened by what I saw and how this young man was treated. And we all should be sickened by it. Thank you.
I think we can be 100% in alignment.
Commissioner Levens?
Thank you, Chair. And I do have to apologize. I'm not 100% on my game. Broke my foot, and several nights of no sleep because of it. But first of all, I just thank you, Chief. I really appreciate you. Even though we might go at it sometimes, I really appreciate you. And I wanted to call you out for saying that good officers calling out bad officers is a very important part of the culture that you are engendering. So I just literally wanted to put that out there, as that is part of the EPD culture, and I appreciate you for that. To the point about the efficiency, about looking over officer behavior and the quote unquote success rate with that, it kind of lends me to ask, and I don't need a question or an answer right now, but it certainly lends me to ask why so many female officers left EPD. I think we have a lot of backstory, but I would maybe on a future meeting, I would love some more clarification on that. I appreciate your willingness for a cultural audit. And Chair, please direct me, but I would like to make a motion that we actually recommend that cultural audit happens. If it's not the right time, let me know. I'll make it later.
Well, I think we are certainly in a position to make a recommendation. Whether the chief takes the recommendation or not is his prerogative, but I believe we are in a position to make that recommendation. So your motion is on the table. Is there a second? Thank you. Dr. Booker is seconding. I'm all in favor of recommending that the chief and
What, can you
Councilor
explain,
Lewis, yes?
can you explain what that means? For someone?
I had a question which might clarify yours, Alan, as well. Are we making this recommendation to City Council to support Chief's initiative to do the cultural audit? Or are we making the recommendation to Chief himself?
It's a good question. Thank you, Commissioner Shivers.
And my question was related to, I think Chief, you said you are doing cultural audit, so I'm not sure I understand what the.
Yeah, I think my point I was trying to get across is that we as an organization, as robust as civilian oversight is, CRB, Police Commission, is that we're an open organization that's willing to participate in a variety of things that are going to help us be better. I know that there's a variety of mechanisms that are out there to be able to do that. I also know that if you talk to consultants that do this work, that if you go in looking for a problem, you're going to find the problem, whether it's sexism or racism or ageism. It doesn't make any difference. You're going to find those things. But the one thing I didn't want to leave this commission with feeling is that, you know, you have a chief that's saying, stay out of my organization and stay out of my business. That's not necessary. That's not what I was trying to convey.
I'd like to table that for our next meeting, because I think it's a good idea, but I think we need to flesh it out more before we make a recommendation, Commissioner Lemons. Judge Lemon.
So I thought that we had a motion and a second, and so then I think we could, I believe, I'm not the Roberts person, but I think we need a motion then to table it, and we were in discussion of it, and all I wanted to say respectfully to Commissioner Lemons is I'm totally on board with the sentiment, but rather than specifically direct, you know, do this, perform this, I'm much more interested in doing what I said a few minutes back, which was to just make sure that the council and the manager and HR, whoever it is, someone's going to come back to us and tell us we're examining whether there is, like at this point, it's anecdotal and we don't know, but an audit could be a perfect tool in that. I just don't want to micro direct as opposed to asking for to tell us that it is being addressed. However, the people who handle that address it. So whether it be a consultant, whether it be internal, whether it be through anonymous questioning, but so.
And I would just finish and the work that Leah and her team is doing may be really informative. That could be a complementary piece to anything that we would want to do in the future, that this work needs to be done first. That could, I think, really inform that future work if there is any.
Commissioner Parra?
Can we make the can we word it with the amendment of making a recommendation to City Council to have an audit, a cultural audit for the police department?
Take that friendly amendment.
If the council got that, the first question the council would ask was, what does that mean? I don't know what you haven't defined what a cultural audit is. And so there's probably a wide variety of what people think are a cultural audit. So, and as I don't know what the council would do with a recommendation like that, because they wouldn't have enough information to act.
So then how could we create the recommendation with the specific wording that would make you feel comfortable to make that a recommendation?
But you'd have to define what a cultural audit is.
So I'm asking if. Okay, I guess we should probably table this then.
Yeah, if you came back with a motion that said something along the lines of, these are the issues and these are the things that need to be investigated within a cultural audit, and we recommended that the city do that with the EPD, that would be something that was more actionable.
So then can we
help you out here?
Yeah, I know. So that's what I'm saying. Can we can we word it in that way to make this a recommendation to the city council to focus on a cultural audit around, I guess, gender biases possibly, or like, gender biases and uh, uh, yeah, the promotion and
Potential
hiring.
disparities.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'll take comments from commissioners in the orders in which their hands are raised. Commissioner Shivers?
Yeah, Alan said that he was not the Roberts Rules guy. I don't know that I qualify either, but absolutely right. I would make a motion to table this until next meeting, assuming that the upcoming meeting dates, the May 9th to be decided is not going to upset any of our new chair's plans. It sounds like we have a really good idea, and we need some time to solidify exactly what that means. So I would move to table this discussion until next meeting.
Holly, who else has a hand up? I saw at one point there were three, but I don't know if we got them all. And I know Commissioner Lemon still has his hand up.
Commissioner Mogart.
Commissioner Mogart.
But you have to ask if there's a second for
Oh.
the motion.
Yes, is there a second to Commissioner Shivers' motion to table the current motion?
Yes.
I'll make that second.
Okay, so we have a motion made by Commissioner Shivers, seconded by Commissioner Levitz. We will bring it back to the next meeting and then, and we have to vote on that. Thank you. I'm so glad. All right, and I still have a hand up from Commissioner Mogart. Thank you, everyone, for helping me and for your patience with this.
Yeah, I was just gonna say we're kind of slipping into really slippery territory with Counselor Zelenka making suggestions about how we're going to proceed with this if they're the ones that get the policy. So I'm fine with us tabling it and having a discussion later, but I think we really need to be careful and tread lightly how we proceed with this, especially if the counselor is going to be voting on it.
Thank you, Commissioner Mogart. So all in favor of tabling this motion for discussion at our next meeting, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And any abstentions?
I'm going to abstain.
Is that Commissioner Mogart or Commissioner Parker?
It is Commissioner Mogart, sorry.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Lemons, your hand is up.
Yep. Number 4 on mine was, does the Eugene Police Department keep a quote unquote unwanted list? And this comes from a consumer that I'm dealing with right now. I'm trying to help him out. So he comes from a perspective. He came from Canada, and he doesn't want to. He doesn't want too many details on the public record. But is there a list that EPD keeps that says that these people are unwanted? He calls it a terrorist list, but I would really much appreciate hearing that. And then lastly, can you give me more details into the second internal affairs case, because it was just brought up by Judge Lehman as to, well, it was certainly against EPD policy to not have your camera on. So why did that happen? Why was it unsustained? And what can the police commission do within policy to make sure that that does not happen again?
Let me answer the first part of your first question, and then I've got a comment, and then I'm going to respectfully excuse myself because I've got a family commitment. I don't have any idea what an unwanted list is. We have strong rules around keeping intelligence lists in the organization. That's as near as I can tell. That feels like what that is, but I don't know what an unwanted list is, and I don't. Without more information, Commissioner Lemons, I don't even know how to answer that question. Secondly, honestly, I'd have to go back and look at the case file on the insufficient evidence piece. if my memory serves me correctly, I think the piece of this that always is a bit nuanced is the concept and the science around action and reaction. And when something happens suddenly, whether or not you have the reasonable opportunity to be able to do certain things. I've been in a situation where I can't even get my car in park, and it's rolling down the road because I had to get out so fast. And so I'm wondering, and Leah can probably speak to how we came to that. As far as your second piece about influencing adjudication, I would say that is well outside the police commission's purview to be able to create policy that would somehow look at individual adjudications and start trying to build policy to make sure that it would influence adjudications. I may not even have your sentiment right, but that's kind of, when you said that, that's what it felt like. Lastly, let me say before I step out, and Commissioner Booker, I appreciate you having the mother here. What I would suggest, and I'm looking at Holly, what I would suggest is, I'm happy to hear from the mother. I would suggest that she and I do that one-on-one, so that I have an opportunity to spend the time to be able to listen to what her concerns are. One concern that I have about having a really in-depth conversation about an ongoing investigation where an arrest has been made is that it could significantly not only influence the investigation, but possibly influence the prosecution. And so trying to keep that in somewhat of a lockdown so that we can get the type of outcome we're looking for is always really important to me. And I'm always kind of thinking about this through the eyes of the justice system and what's fair, because we've got a victim and we have a suspect, both have rights. And I just get a little bit nervous when we start talking about the nuances of a case that's yet to be prosecuted and whether or not that would influence the sentiment and or public perception and or the system around that prosecution. And so I would encourage her to reach out to Holly and schedule some time with me. I can come to her and be able to have that conversation. It sounds like she'll be having a conversation with the auditor's office as well. But I'm always open to having conversations with mothers, fathers, family members of victims in our community, because we do want to have a victim-centered approach to everything that we do.
Thank you, Chief Skinner.
Well, thank you, Chief.
Thank you. And if you take really good notes on the camera policy, Julie is on vacation for like 2 months. So I'm in my office doing this work. So if we take good notes on where we want to go with the camera policy, I'm happy to take a look at that.
Thank you, Chief.
Yep.
Commissioner Lemons?
Yeah, just super quickly, I know you're leaving, Chief Skinner. Can you please, I was really hoping for like an update on Measure 110 and where you're expecting that ongoing. You promised that last time. I understand you don't need to come back.
If my kid scores his first goal in lacrosse and I'm not there, it's not
you can come and whoop my butt. I promise.
No, that's not the way that works. Real quickly, ballot measure 110 as signed by the governor. We're still working through the details of what this looks like. There's some things that are in our purview, some things that are outside of our purview. Unclassified misdemeanor, arrestable offense like it used to be with that unclassified misdemeanor. It's up to Lane County to build a deflection program that we can take advantage of, which would be in lieu of that custody arrest. We could go to deflection, so that's in Lane County effort to be able to do that. These arrests will go through circuit court, through the DA's office, and be eligible for diversion, much like DUI diversion, and their specialty court docket, like drug court. There's provisions in there for expungement upon successful completion of treatment. We will have the discretion in the field, whether it's a custody arrest or a citation only. We'll be seizing controlled substance, obviously, in those particular situations. And I say all of this to say that much like when ballot measure 110 was voted upon a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, Oregon still ranks 49th or 50th in the country in treatment availability. And so I still say state needs to buck up and spend some money on treatment, because we don't want to arrest the same people over and over again. Trust me, you guys. If we make an arrest and we know that there's a specialty court that's going to get them on-demand treatment, then we are going to be a better community when we lower the recidivism rate, because we know that oftentimes drug use, not all the time, but oftentimes drug use is also, there's a complementary criminal side to that with property crimes and shoplifts and thefts, because people are often engaged in that survival behavior because of their substance abuse disorder. So this is not about us wanting to make a ton of arrests. This is about us finding a way to get people into a system for on-demand treatment. And so we will always be pushing the state to make sure that those dollars are going to evidence-based treatment and treating the addiction anywhere we can. So
Thank you, Chief.
all right.
You're excused.
Thank you.
Thank you for sticking around for another 3 minutes. Appreciate you.
On your point, Scott, there's a work session poll that was approved for city council to do a work session that Councilor Leach and I put together on the status of substance abuse and mental health services in Eugene, in Lane County, and in the state. And specifically, one of the 10 questions involved in that was how does the reform of Measure 110 affect what we're doing here locally in terms of substance abuse treatment and what's available. So stay tuned for that. I don't think that it's a pretty big ask that we had of them. So probably be in a couple of months before we get back to that. But that's going to be on the council agenda.
It's
Wyman?
can you
really quick.
can you please email us when that comes up so I can be there?
Yeah, it's probably going to be in May.
Oh yeah. You know, I'm
maybe even June.
Real quick for Commissioner Lemons, the CRB review case about the use of the cameras. It was a split in the department. Deputy Chief Adams actually voted to sustain the allegations, and the chief went with insufficient evidence, and the auditor was also at insufficient evidence. And the chief was right about what it was. It was in the split second moment, it was determined by the investigators that it simply was, there was no intent. There was no specific intent to not activate. It just didn't happen. But the split is that the policy says shall activate. And so is there a specific intent in the law? We call it mens rea. Is it a strict liability offense? You don't have it on, you're guilty and you're subject to discipline? Or is there this, you didn't do it, but you had no intent to not do it? And obviously the department there's a split and it's unsettled. So that's just the report.
I was just gonna say that CRV will be posted online if you want to watch this session. There's like nothing discussion. I would say lovely Tuesday night.
Commissioner Shivers?
Yeah, I just want to say we have in a lot of our policies the built-in like objectively reasonable standard. And for me, that comes down to a question of trust. And I think for the most part, we have a good system. And I think that over the past couple of months, we've seen that trust strained due to unfolding allegations. So I don't want that trust to collapse. I think there's reason to keep working on any kind of relationship. And I applaud everybody here for doing the hard work.
Thank you. With the passing of our former chair and with the conversations that have come up this evening has been went off the rails as far as the agenda goes. I'd like to make a motion that we've tabled the 2 policy reviews since we have neither the chief nor Sergeant, how do you say her last name? Barong now, here. And especially given the time constraints, because we are 15 minutes away from closing. So I would like to table both of those. I see your face, Commissioner Lemons. I know it's disappointing to you.
No, like I'm so prepared for tonight.
I know you are. I know you are.
Go down to table.
Thank you. Councilor Zelenka seconded the motion. All in favor, please say aye.
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 And any opposed, please say no. And any abstentions? Thank you. I also, in case we have, in the attendees, I'd also like to move that we move public comment up before closing comments. And so may I have a second for that, please? Thank you, Commissioner Levinson, Commissioner Shivers. All in favor of moving public comment up, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. Any abstentions? Thank you. Holly, did any of our attendees wish to speak for public comment this evening? All right.
I believe the mother took Chief's advice. She left the meeting, so I think she's gonna let that play out.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Becker. I wanted to make sure she had an opportunity at least. So with that, I will move us into closing comments. And we will start off with Commissioner Booker.
Just I want to thank you, Chair, for stepping up. I know it's been difficult trying to take over and just be thrown to the spotlight, but you're doing a remarkable job. You always show remarkable leadership. And thank you for coordinating us to represent Dallas by wearing pink today. I know everybody saw me in this crazy hat and everything, but I wanted to represent Dallas today. So thank you for coordinating that, and allowing us 2 minutes to speak on what he meant to us. 2 minutes you can never fit all the words in 2 minutes on what Dallas meant to me and to the police commission, to this city. But thank you for taking the time to lead the charge on that, and look forward to your leadership and direction. And just thank you. And I appreciate the auditor being here. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Becker. It was Holly's idea for us to wear pink tonight.
Oh, thank you, Holly. Thank you. Appreciate you,
Judge
Holly.
Lyman.
I could not state it any better than Commissioner Booker just stated it. So that's thank you.
All right. Commissioner Lemons.
I guess like outside of how.
Yeah.
Oh, can you all hear me?
Yes, we can now.
Oh, okay. Outside of how heartbroken I am over the loss of our former chair, I am certainly looking forward to the table discussion about the video cameras and specifically facial recognition when it comes to that. I also saw, and I had several people lined up for public comment because it was on the agenda a month ago about communicating with people with disabilities. And I really hope that continues on the agenda. I really appreciate you all for dealing with me and for all of the passion that you all bring. And I really look forward to hanging out with y'all soon. And I really want to take vice chairs cue as we should all hang out in person. Jesus, I can't stand just seeing you over Zoom. So let's do it. And that's my closing comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lemons. And yes, the communicating with individuals with disabilities is definitely very much still on the work plan and is definitely something that will be coming up in one of our future meetings. Commissioner Mogart. Do we still have Commissioner Mogart? Let's go. Okay. Commissioner Parham.
Yeah, I would like to task the city, I think, with looking into civil penalties that could be levied to people who are convicted of bias crimes. Because as a person of color, a Black person in this community, I feel remarkably unsafe. And so I task y'all, like, help us, please. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Commissioner Shivers.
No further comment. Thank you.
Councilor Yang.
Yeah, I just want to thank Acting Chair Hawkins for taking on so much work suddenly, and how well you have done it dealing with your own feelings about all this and still coming and being professional and getting the work done. And I know that's super hard and you are very appreciated.
Thank you very much, Counselor. Counselor Zelenka?
Yeah, Commissioner Parham, I got a chance to look at the weekly article while we were meeting, so I was reacting to the comment that EVD doesn't go bus parties, which they do. So this is a completely different thing. This is a very awful thing. It's very sad that it actually occurs, and making sure that the city and the U of O PD cooperate and coordinate is a real high priority for me, and I think for the whole council. We've had that conversation several times, so apologize for that. And I do want to thank the chair for stepping in and doing a really good job on very short notice. It's a tough thing to do. This is a friend of mine called it, instead of herding cats, it's wheelbarrowing frogs from one party to another. They're all jumping out of the wheelbarrow and you kind of grab them all.
That's a great mental image. Thank you, Counselor. This evening, we've had a great conversation. And I extend my thanks to the chief for humoring us and staying as long as he did to take a bunch of additional questions. And actually, I think the term humoring it was inappropriate because that makes it sound kind of disrespectful. He was actually very respectful of the questions that we brought to him this evening, and it's always appreciated when he is present at the table and he responds to the questions that we bring representing our community. I would also express my thanks to all of the commissioners who have put up with my bumbling this evening as I learn all about Robert's rules on the fly. So thank you very much to Judge Lyman and Commissioner Shivers for keeping me honest as far as point of order. And our meeting is adjourned.
You ended it perfectly, so that's all that matters, right?
And early.